Sure.
Who wants to start?
Josh can.
Good one.
Go for it, Josh.
Okay, so Chris has been fishing spinning for all of his life, but he really started getting into fly fishing in the past 3 years. He has a place up in Keystone, and he likes to fish the Blue River a lot. Me and him go fishing like around Kankara a lot for just like Bear Creek and like that. Um, and I think is oh, never mind. Okay, yeah.
All right. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Chris, would you like to introduce Josh?
Yeah, Josh is 15 and he's gonna be a sophomore in high school. Josh loves to fly fish and hunt. He usually likes to fish the South Platte near Deckers, and Josh also plays lacrosse at Chatfield.
Nice. Thank you. Let's see. Do we have Eric and Jonathan both on? Looks like it. Eric and Jonathan, who would like to go first? Go for it, Eric. You're smiling.
All right. My partner was Jonathan. He's 15. He's been fly fishing for 6 years. He lives in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. He really likes to fish the San Juan, and his two favorite styles of fly fishing are sight fishing with dry flies and Euro nymphing.
Nice. Good to know those things. All right, Jonathan, would you like to introduce Chris now? Eric now.
Yeah, for sure. Eric is from Nederland, Colorado. His favorite type of stream to fish are small streams. He fly fishes and he's been fishing for about 9 years. He does soccer and skis. His dream fish would be a golden dorado. He's caught a tiger trout. He has a crested gecko, dogs all the way, no cats. He likes to hunt. He ties flies, and his favorite flies to tie are elk caracatus. And yeah. Oh, his favorite rivers to fish are the South Boulder in Arkansas.
Nice. That elk caracatus is a great fly to have in your box right now.
Yeah.
That's
Where do you
for
fish
sure.
the South Boulder Creek?
So I used to have access to private property right below the fishing club, but the fishing club bought that. So there's a spot by Pine Cliff.
Yep.
You walk down to that gate, and I fished down there. But I caught that tiger trout on the private property.
Cool.
Neat. Very cool.
As a kid, I used to go to Pine Cliff there and walk the tracks back through the two tunnels with my dad, fish all the pocket water, almost all the way down to Gross Reservoir. It's a great place.
Yeah.
Would you share with us what a tiger trout is?
Well, I'm not 100% positive, but I know it's a hybrid, and I think it's between brown trout and brook trout, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
That is correct. You can also catch tiger trout in the public water, sometimes on the Big Thompson, because they've stocked the Lake Estes with those, and it seems like a few have gone over the dam or through the dam.
I've pulled some tigers both in Big Thompson, and there's a lot in the High Mountain Lakes if you're willing to look for them.
Ah, so those must all be stocked up there. Cool.
Well, I believe they are sterile, are they not?
Yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's a sterile hybrid.
Yeah, so there's no reproduction. They get stocked and they grow, and there's a number of game fish that have been introduced in the state that are like that.
Yeah, they have to be specially raised in hatcheries. They have to, the temperatures have to be exactly right, and they don't have a real high yield, but they're popular with fishermen, that's for sure.
And there's genetic history that goes back with these. You know, we have rainbows, browns, and brook trout as our primary introduced trout species in the state. The brook trout require very, very clean and cold water and specific temperatures to rear in a hatchery. And since they're from back east, there were many, many attempts, even all the way back to the dawn of our country in the 1770s, where they're trying to raise fish, and it wasn't terribly successful. Browns are a little better, but still pretty difficult to rear. And it wasn't until the 1850s when they went to California and started collecting eggs and hatching from the McCloud River in California that widespread stocking started to take place. So what they do in the hatcheries today is just moved up in sophistication and helped with the improvement in yield from what it used to be, dating back over 250 years.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Larry, for that. So Marcus, doesn't look like Kobe's here. Would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Marcus. I'm 16. I'm gonna be a junior in high school. I enjoy fishing in South Platte a lot, and I also enjoy making music.
Kind of music?
I make like guitar songs, and I also rap a little bit.
Nice. More creative people. You guys have a lot of creative talents out there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Who else on this call has not been introduced? Aisha, were you introduced last week?
I don't think so.
Would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, okay. I'm Aisha. I ride horses. Like, I've been riding horses for a while.
Cool.
I've really enjoyed fishing. Like, that's like one of my hobbies. And I also like nature and science, and I love everything to do with like science and all that.
Nice. Thank you, Aisha.
Where do you live, Aisha?
I'm about to move into Green Valley Ranch.
Oh, nice. I have friends that live there.
Where is that? Is that South Denver?
No, it's kind of over near Green Mountain.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Very cool. Nice. Is there anyone else on the Grant? Were you introduced?
I have not been yet.
Would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hello everybody. My name is Grant. I'm 17. I live in Highlands Ranch, and I've been fishing for about 4 years. So it's been a little while, but I've definitely gotten into it more. I don't play sports right now, but I do like getting outdoors as much as I can, doing a lot of kind of intense hiking, usually paired with fishing, hopefully, right? And I do Boy Scouts as well right now. Actually in the process of doing an Eagle Scout project with Trout Unlimited, so hopefully that works out.
Great.
But yeah, I like to fish sometimes, you know. I think there's a lot to be learned from it, and hopefully there's a lot to learn from this session as well.
Great. Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Hey, Grant, you join a long list of Eagle Scout participants in this program. I know of at least, I think last time I counted, we had 9 Eagle Scout projects that were done through this project, and for people getting their Eagle Scout badges. So keep it up.
That's a lot.
Super. Yeah, it is a lot. Yeah, and actually, I think you might be the 11th, because we have a camper last summer that's doing an Eagle Scout project through 2U also.
That's
good for him.
We have old Eagle Scouts on staff.
Right. I think Trenton is working toward his as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Trenton will be. He's a few years to go.
Yep.
Wyatt, did you get it? You didn't get introduced, did you?
Finn was supposed to send his video, but I can do. I can just
Please,
send introduction.
please introduce yourself.
Okay, so I'm Wyatt. I just got into fly fishing. I got a fly rod this Christmas, so I'm hoping to learn from this camp. I shoot a lot of archery with Josh, also on the camp. I like to hunt. I've been doing like regular fishing for a long time, so I do have
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Where do you live, Wyatt?
I live in Castle Rock.
Wyatt lives in Castle Rock. Very good. Yeah, there's a big group of you that are all in that south part of Denver. Tanner, did you get introduced?
No, I did not.
Okay, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Yeah. I'm Tanner. I'm 16. I play hockey and lacrosse, and I've been fly fishing for about 4 or 5 years. We've done some pretty cool trips to Alaska and South Dakota, and we're gonna go to Montana eventually.
Nice.
Where'd you go in Alaska, Tanner?
The Kennebec River.
Cool. All right. Is there anyone else on the call that hasn't been introduced? You please speak up so I know. Okay, if I think you all have, and it's been a delight to meet each of you through all this. So today, our topic is going to be on macroinvertebrates and fly selection. Prior to that, I just wanted to highlight a few things that you guys have been doing in terms of the scavenger hunt and the stream walk, right? Make a note in the chat box if you've done a stream walk. Audrey has, Wyatt has, Josh has, Marcus has, Grant, Jonathan, Grant, Brody, Chris. Okay, a lot of you've done a stream walk. That's awesome. And it looks like you guys have been putting stuff in the slide decks for the scavenger hunt. So Grant, you went all out. You even went to Google Earth and got us a photo of the river where you went for your walk and where you saw some scavenger hunt things. You know, people are putting in, here's some of Brody's observations. I particularly like this one because look at Brody's hand right here. And he found all these caddis that you guys are going to learn about today. And he matched it to a fly and caught some brown trout. Great job, Brody. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Very cool. And this is Lyons, it looks like. I recognize that bridge. Is that
Yeah.
right?
It's St. Vrain and Lyons, yeah.
St. Vrain and Lyons. That's my home waters also. Dick's home waters also.
Yep.
And on the Rio Grande, Jonathan, you've gone out and gotten some nice photos of structures, riffles, and pools. And Jonathan is looking at the aquatic insects also. What's that you're holding, Jonathan? Do you know?
I believe that was a stonefly.
Yeah, I believe you are correct. Very nice. And then Kobe's gone out on the Colorado. He even has a fisherman in his photos too. He's got a run going into a riffle right here. He's got a nice picture of a point bar coming out into the river. And then that would be the fallweg on the left side where the water runs deeper and then shallows up onto the point bar. And he's captured quite a few other features, some natural diversion by a tree. and bank habitat,
That's a
which
great
is
photo.
also a really beautiful photo.
Yeah.
A really, really nice photo. The Arkansas team so far is winning on numbers of observations. Audrey has put in quite a few here. Riffle, some natural or unnatural structures that are diverting the river. She's also made observations on the stream bed composition and the temperature. She went online to figure out what the water temperature was. And Wyatt, you've been helping on this too, showing a grassy bank and a lot of algae. Is this a pond or is this like a pool in a river?
This was just a pond near my house.
This is a pond. Oh, okay, nice, very nice. And he's showing some of the vegetation in that grassy bottom. And then Josh, you've gotten in on this too, showing the river bottom and both the sediment distributions and some of the moss in the water. So we're going to basically leave this open until next Monday for people to compile in their observations. If you've been taking pictures on your stream walks, or you can take pictures from your field notebook and paste them in here too. And the watershed that has the most entries by the most people will be the winning watershed. So we'll compile that and announce that at the next, our final session. You guys have also done some neat stuff. You're very creative and artistic last session. And so far on the Cutthroat Art Challenge, we have 4 submissions. Carson has put in a submission of a cutthroat that he calls "Eventually All Things Merge into One and a River Runs Through It." A very detailed illustration here. Eric also has done a cutthroat illustration. I believe this would be the greenback cutthroat probably. Looking at how he has all this green coloring on it. Nice slash in the jaw. And Kobe's also done a cutthroat illustration. This one in full spawning colors. Very beautiful. And Kate has submitted a more interpretive drawing, and I called it Cutthroat Mountain, but she'll have to tell me what she would like to call this, and use the cutthroat coloration to color a mountain silhouette. So this contest is also still open, and we will, our leaders here will judge the submissions and award, we'll announce the winners at the next session. You guys are really busy this time. I'll let you guys go and look at this for yourselves. Both Brody and Aisha submitted some videos. Remember, Paul Nicoletti really, asked you guys, compile videos, submit videos and content that they can integrate into the intermission times at the Fly Fishing Film Festival. And Larry's done a little more legwork on that. And Larry, do you want to talk about
Sure.
what you've done?
Yeah, so if everyone would, if you would please use the reactions tab and let me know how many of you have either heard of or been to the Fly Fishing Film Tour. Are you starting to see them, Barbara? I'm not sure I can see the.
Or you can put it in the chat box.
That'd be fine too. Yeah.
Yeah, you go ahead and put it in the chat box.
Please. While everyone's doing that, I'll let you know that Paul is a fairly new director to the Fly Fishing Film Tour, but he's a huge advocate for youth education and programs, and he's done a lot in his career already in that in that realm, as you heard in our session a couple times ago. He is willing to take materials here, along with the help of staff at Colorado Trout Unlimited, to create video content that can be used on their social media pages about our camp. And also, he's looking to see if he can put that together and be used at the actual fly fishing film tour. For those of you that may not be as familiar with the tour, this is a tour of what some people call fishing porn. It's a collection of various writers and producers of fly fishing short videos, and they're compiled for a show that tours the country. And I believe right now they're in 48 different locations starting this fall, and it usually ends up in about March. And so huge crowds. I mean, they go to large, theaters, and they usually fill them with people interested in fly fishing. And you all can be a part of that. And we really encourage you to continue to submit videos, pictures, your stories. And I'd like to throw out also, I don't think we've gotten very far in terms of the TikTok submittals. I'll put out the challenge there. If people will put out TikTok submissions this week, I will donate a handbook field guide that's a little pocket guide for identification of aquatic bugs for whoever comes up with the winning submission. So we're very excited about how this program is going. It is very unique. This is not a project that has had this much detail and participation anywhere else in the country. And it makes a very compelling story, and people want to hear what you have to say. So I really encourage you in the next week to get as much information and materials submitted that you possibly can, and have fun with it. We have the holiday weekend coming up. I hope that helps in terms of giving you some time. Some of you might even be going on fishing trips. So please do your best to add things, and so we can share amongst ourselves and everyone else the unique experience that you're having.
Right. And so let me just remind you, you guys are doing, everybody on this call is doing a really good job right now to earn your fly rod. And what we want from that is you to attend each session or listen to the live stream if you can't make the session, and all of you that have missed sessions have been doing that. And then to complete at least one of the do-it-yourself activities with each session. But you can do them in any order, right? Doesn't matter what order. So our expectation is that you do 4 do-it-yourself activities at a minimum. Everything you do over earns you towards your lanyard, your lanyard and the tools on your lanyard too. So, and a lot of you have been doing multiple activities every session, and I think that's really awesome. And the other thing the last thing I wanted to share with you, go into the Google site and look at Brody's videos and Aisho's videos. They're really nice, and there's some kind of pretty good looking fish in those videos too.
Yeah. Here's an example of the lanyards.
Oh, Dick, you got the example?
Yep, right there.
All right, I'll put the spotlight on you.
Because of my background, but
yeah.
Anyhow.
So that's great. Thank you, Dick. And a lot of you participated. It seems like you were really motivated by the content last week, because a lot of you went and looked at more native trout conservation websites and made some reflections on the Padlet. And I think it's really awesome. And so I encourage you to go to the Google site and look at what your peers are saying about it. Tanner's made some nice notes here that he found it interesting how native species get kicked out of the homes they originally habituated by bigger trout or other species that people bring in to game fish. Many of these fishermen bring in the species that are somewhat invasive to the native trout, not knowing what effect it has on the native trout. People are just now realizing what harm they did to the environments. So now they're making an effort to bring the native trout in many rivers back to correct these fisheries. That's a great insight, and that's the kind of message that we put. One of the reasons we put this program together was to get these kinds of messages out. So it's really clear to me that you guys are listening and you're taking this in and you're processing it and gaining knowledge from it. So I think that's really wonderful. So spend a few minutes looking at your peers' submissions on the Google site. You guys are doing some really nice things, and it shows. So at this point, does anybody have any questions about the do-it-yourself activities? So you have until Monday, basically, to get your activities done. And then Tuesday, I'll be able to compile everything. And on Wednesday, when we have our final session on Wednesday, those activities that have winners, we'll announce them. And we'll probably have a few other announcements too at that time. But we'll pull everything together for the completion at the final session. So if you do have questions, you know you can email me. A lot of you have been, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Last thing we wanted to cover for introductions is we apologize for the snafu we had for the presentation on watersheds. We used the TU account and didn't have access to it necessarily, and we're not able to run the additional watershed session. So I'm willing to do this again. Barbara will use her account so we don't have that same problem. Can we get everyone in chat who'd be interested in attending a watershed session to please let me know? If we get enough participants, why we'll schedule that for this evening, if that sounds okay. We'll try to do it at 7 o'clock, and we'll go through watersheds in more detail. So just go ahead and let us know if you're interested, and if so, we'll get it set up and we'll go through it tonight. And like I said, there'll be some lecture, but for the most part, what I want to do is use the material to stimulate discussion.
Awesome, and I want to thank the people that attended our mini film festival. Annie, can they still go to the TU YouTube site and watch those films that we had on Thursday evening?
Yes, it's on our YouTube channel, so they can go there, and I believe it's called the it should be labeled Watch Party.
Yeah, so if you go to YouTube and bring up Colorado Trout Unlimited, then there's a set of films called Watch Party, and you can still watch those films. And they were very nice and very informative too.
Sorry I'm late. I was having computer problems.
Well, I'm glad you made it, Kate. Good to have you here.
Thanks.
So Dick, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All righty. Well, we're going to talk about bugs today. So, and a few other things besides bugs. So let me share my screen here and get proper presentation up if I can. Whoops. Let me get this open first. Da-da. Okay, we went to, I can't, oh, there we go. Can everybody see that?
Not yet. Dick, when you share, you want to make sure you also, at the very bottom, it says share computer and sound. Click that, because you're going to show a video, right?
No, I'm going to do a presentation right now.
Right.
Let me get to Zoom, back to Zoom here. Oh, I thought I knew how to do this. Let me, I should be able to just open up this
Right. If you click on share screen.
share screen. Got
and
it.
And then on your program or your screen,
Uh-huh.
click on, click the one you want and then click the share button in the lower right.
Okay. Share.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Got it?
Yep.
People can see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to go through this as a fairly quick review of the presentation that was online that we asked you to look at last time. And oh, this is not the one I wanted to share right now. Dang. Okay, so how do I get, let me close this. Exit. That's not the one I wanted. Hang on, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. If you go back to share, then you can, oh, so now there you go. That's your what fly.
Insects for no, not that one, not that one, not that one. Oh, sorry. We'll review that in the context of this presentation. So let me go back. Okay, I'm stuck now, Barbara.
You're stuck, okay. Right there.
Can you see that?
Yes, we can see that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
So we'll do our review in the context of this presentation. A lot of the information that is in there that we asked you to take a look at is also in this presentation. So we'll just go through this one, all right? So knowing what fly to use is an important part of being a successful fly fisherman. Well, when you go in the average fly shop, this is what you're confronted with. These are some pictures from our fly shop, the Laughing Grizzly here in Longmont. And we have about 1,500 bins of flies, and which represents about 500 fly patterns. And so there's lots and lots to choose from. So how do you know, since we base our choices of flies on what's active in the streams, how do we know what's active? So we look under rocks in the stream bed. Some of you have done that already. We can shake the bushes, trees, and grass and see what insects may be hiding in there. Even sometimes there might be mice and voles in there that can get into the river. Is there anything in the air? Are bugs flying around? Can we identify them? Are they midges or caddis or mayflies? And is there anything on the water? Any little bugs floating down the surface, drying their wings, ready to fly away? So that's how we know. That's the sort of match the hatch approach that we want to take. So the message is you got to know your bugs. Our major aquatic insects are mayflies, caddisflies, stoneflies, and midges. Terrestrial insects like grasshoppers, beetles, ants, inchworms, a few other things. And then there's the other stuff, fish like sculpins or baby trout, scuds and shrimp, especially in tailwaters, lakes, and spring creeks, leeches, sow bugs, eggs, fish eggs, and not just trout eggs, but also other fish eggs and worms, both aquatic worms and earthworms. So you got to know your bugs. And so there's Doug and Linda and Chuck and Liz and Carl and Jerry. But you don't need to know them on a personal basis. Here are our major watersheds in Colorado. And the point of showing this is they all have the same bugs, but in different proportions. Okay. So no matter where you go in Colorado, from the Front Range west, pretty much you're going to find the same insects. So let's take a look first at mayflies. Mayflies have an incomplete life cycle. Anybody know what that means?
That they only reproduce and then they die.
No, not quite. Okay, they have no pupal stage. They once the eggs are laid and hatch, they hatch directly into the larva, which we call nymphs, and the nymphs, when they're ready to hatch, are fully formed adults. When they first hatch, we call them, in fisherman speak, duns. In entomology speak, that's a subimago. They fly into streamside bushes and grass and so forth, and they undergo one more molt. And in that process, they become what is a fully formed adult in imago, or again, in fly fisherman speak, a spinner. So the duns have typically have gray wings or some kind of color. When they become a fully fledged adult, they have transparent wings. In the process, they also lose all their they lose their ability to drink or eat. They exist for one thing only, and that is to mate and produce more. So that's the mayfly life cycle. Our common mayflies in Colorado are blue-wing olives, very small mayfly, and you can see in parentheses there I've listed the hatch times for all of these major insect groups. March browns, fairly sparse, but we do find them in many places. Pale morning duns, beautiful little yellow mayflies, gray drakes, they're hatching about this time, as are PMDs. Flavellinea, which is kind of a small green drake, very closely related. They'll be hatching out here pretty soon. Red quills, very reliable hatch about 4 o'clock in the afternoon almost every day in July and August. Calabatus, the most common mayfly of lakes, and tricos, July and September, which hatch in huge clouds over rivers, millions and millions in clouds on the rivers. Questions about any of those so far? Anybody seen any of those? Okay, it's a quiet day, huh? So let's talk about flies that match these insects. So here's an example of a typical mayfly nymph or larva. Okay, many mayfly nymphs just look like that. Now there are sort of basically 4 different kinds. There's burrowers and clingers and swimmers and so forth, but the body form is very, very similar on most of these. Some have more apparent gills than others, but this is general type. So gold rib hares here is a great all-around imitation of a mayfly nymph, as is the pheasant tail. Two-bit hookers, another popular pattern these days. The emergers, that is the stage of the insect as it's coming out of its shuck. The bar emerger, a great one. Charlie's molefly, another great emerger. These bugs typically are found right in the film or just under the film. Okay. The adult dun, remember that's the stage that initially hatches, got its gray wing. The comparadun and sparkle duns are common imitations. Notice the split tail on the comparadun that matches the split tail on the dun. The adult spinner, the clear wing version. In terms of parachute style flies, there's lots of parachute style flies. The parachute Adams, parachute PMDs, parachute gray drakes, you name it. You can tie them in any style you want. and the more traditional upright wing flies, in terms of their, blue wing olives, PMDs, red quills, again, they all have their own specific patterns. And then the adult spent spinners, which means they're dead after they've laid their eggs, and the males have fertilized the females. They all die, and they kind of do a face plant with their wings outspread. And so you can see a very common example of that is the rusty spinner. There are other spinner style flies as well, okay, with their wings outspread. An easy to tie pattern, by the way, for you fly tiers. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Caddis flies. Caddis flies have a complete life cycle. So what makes it a complete life cycle? Aisha, you spoke up first. What do you think about a complete life cycle?
That maybe they lay eggs and then it has into larva and then it like has the pupa and then it's an adult and
Exactly.
then it repeats.
Exactly. Just like we said here on the on this slide, a complete life cycle includes a pupa stage. So if you think in terms of butterflies, the eggs hatch into caterpillars. If you use the monarch butterfly as an example, they have those beautiful stripy big caterpillars. The caterpillar does what? Spins a cocoon, and it metamorphosizes in that cocoon. And so in that metamorphosis process, they become an adult and hatch out. Well, caddisfly does the same thing. There are two major types of caddis larvae. There are free-living caddis, and you can see in the bottom left corner of that caddisfly life cycle slide as an example of a free-living caddis. And then there are cased caddis. And if you look over there in the bottom right corner, you'll see an example of a cased caddis. In either example, those insects will either, the free-living ones spin a cocoon underwater, they produce silk. The cased caddis will seal off their case and they will pupate and become an adult and hatch directly out of the water. Okay, our most common examples of caddisflies in Colorado streams, at least, are the Rhyocophila, which are a free-living caddis, Hydropsyche, another free-living caddis, and then the two most common cased caddis are the Brachycentrus, and the Brachycentrus build their cases. They have little pyramidal shaped cases, long and skinny, four-sided, that they build out of leaf litter and so forth. And then the Glossosoma, which attach themselves to rocks, and they build their cases, what are called saddle cases, over the top of their bodies on rocks. They're real common. There's other cased caddis, there's other uncased caddis, but these are the four main ones.
And for those of you that have seen some of these bugs, why don't you share in chat and let us know what you've seen?
Good idea. So in terms of cased caddis, the bread crust or the tar heel caddis and other peaking caddis styles, we call the tar heel caddis an example of a peaking caddis, where that green collar on the fly imitates the insect coming partially out of its case. And then in free-living larvae, you can see the Bar's net builder is a dead-on example of a free-living caddis larva, the kind that spin a cocoon under the water. Okay. In terms of the emerger stage is actually called a pharate adult, P-H-A-R-A-T-E. And you can see that they're kind of streamlined as they swim up to the surface. So the taboo caddis emerger is a great example of that, as are most wet flies or soft hackle flies. And you can see that their antenna, their legs, and their wings are all trailing behind their head as they swim up. Little side note, these when caddis are hatching, they swim up very, very fast. So you can often tell what the trout are eating by their rise form. So if you see very splashy rise forms, you can also, or you can often guess that the trout are eating caddis as they're emerging, because the trout will be swimming up after those caddis larvae emergers and launching themselves partially out of the water. The adults are represented by very many types of flies, but the most common are the elk-hair caddis, X-caddis, extended body caddis like a pewter ball caddis, and so forth. I don't often see the spent ones, but there are a few patterns specifically designed for the spent or dead caddis. I didn't mention, but in mayflies, how long do you think mayflies live as an adult? Anybody have a guess?
24 hours.
Right on, about 24 hours. Their Latin name is ephemera. And we use the English word ephemeral to indicate something that doesn't last very long. So they live for about 24 hours. Caddisflies live for typically several days or several weeks before the larva turns in, or pardon me, before the adult dies. Okay, stoneflies. Stonefly life cycle also incomplete, no pupal form. Opposed to most aquatic insects, they do not hatch directly out of the water. Although there is some controversy, some entomologists believe that there are some that do hatch directly out of the water. But the typical stonefly larva or nymph will crawl out of the water on streamside vegetation, rocks, and so forth. And you will fairly frequently see their empty shucks attached to that structure along the streams. So their larvae crawl out. They hatch out of that larval shuck. They fly away. They're clumsy flyers. And about the only time the adults are available to the fish is when they're laying eggs. So the larval forms, stonefly larvae, nymphs, are the most important stage of the stonefly from a trout's food point of view. Stoneflies vary from very, very small. We see the winter stoneflies, which are about less than a half an inch long, about a centimeter long, up to the really big, almost 3-inch long Pteronarcis californica. So they vary widely in size. The most common species we have in Colorado are golden stoneflies. In our front range streams over here, like the St. Vrain and the Big Thompson and so forth, we have lots and lots of golden stones. The golden stonefly larvae are very colorful, very pretty, typically range from about 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches. Squala stoneflies, not hugely common, but an identifiable hatch. The salmon flies or willow flies, those are the Pteronarcis californica, and you can see from the pictures there that they get pretty big. They are very common on the Gunnison and on the Colorado and some other streams in Colorado. Excuse me, and they can grow quite big. Yellow sallies, fairly small, pretty common. There's also another type of stonefly that I didn't list here, chloropyrlids, which are the tiny little, look like fuzz balls flitting around. They're kind of a greenish yellow color. And then the little winter flies, stoneflies that I made mention of. And you can see there on the finger that they're pretty small. You'll also see them crawl around on the snow if you're out fishing or hiking in, let's say, February, March timeframe, when there's still snow on the ground up in the mountains. Okay, and as far as fly patterns to match these, you can see there Mercer's Goldenstone, for example. The 20-incher is an excellent one. There's lots of others. Kaufman's golden stones and black stones and so on and so forth. The adult versions, a fly called the sofa pillow and the improved sofa pillow, and the stimulator are all great examples of stonefly adult fly patterns. And then there are midges. Midges are diptera, which means two wings. They're a true fly. Now, I'm not an entomologist, so I'm not quite sure what determines or what distinguishes true flies from other flies, but midges are true flies. And they have a complete life cycle, so they also have a pupa stage. And the pupa do not spin cocoons or anything like that. They typically will live under rocks and in many versions in the on silty bottoms in streams. So the larvae tend to be long and skinny and definitely segmented. Now, I know a lot of midge fly patterns end up getting tied on small curved hooks, but a 2x long curved hook is a much better example. So there are larvae, typical pupa. The pupa have very obvious gills on the front, that white fluffy stuff. And they retain those when they emerge as an adult. So that's one of the distinguishing features of both midge, larva, and pupa, or pardon me, pupa and adults, pardon me. They have very identifiable gills on the front. And so as for patterns, zebra midge, probably the most common. Red and black are the most common colors. WD-40s, bars pure midge, and so forth. The pupa patterns typically will all have gills on the front, like those, buzzers and top secrets and rojos. Excellent patterns. And for adults, there's a lot of little adult patterns, including one I didn't list here, which is the Griffith's gnat. Okay. So that's our fly patterns that we like to use to indicate all those. Aquatic insects. As far as terrestrial insects go, we all see hoppers and beetles and ants and flying ants. An interesting thing about high mountain lakes is that during the day, as the air warms at lower altitudes, that warm air rises, and it often will carry with it some of these insects, especially ants and hoppers. And when that warm air goes up the mountainsides, it cools and condenses, and those insects drop out. And so they will often get dropped into lakes. So ant patterns and beetle patterns and hopper patterns are excellent attractors on high alpine lakes because the winds have deposited them there. But in our lower altitude streams and mid altitude streams, these guys fall into the water by accident typically, and trout love them. There's lots of great patterns out there for beetles, hoppers, and ants, many of which are use foam as part of their construction. And then there's the other stuff: worms, eggs, scuds, shrimp, sow-bugs, leeches, bait fish, including juvenile trout. And here are some typical types of patterns that we use. The Ray Charles, a typical sow-bug. Sow-bugs are crustaceans, as are scuds, and mysis shrimp. Leeches, woolly buggers that imitate a variety of different things in both lakes and in streams. Eggs that fish have deposited. So we want to have in our fly boxes all of that kind of stuff. Okay. Questions so far?
Larry, I have one comment. I once had the owner of a fly shop tell me that he made his money on flies. He carried rods and reels and lines just as a courtesy to the anglers. But really, and going back to those pictures you showed at the start of just tray after tray of flies, yeah, it can be overwhelming.
It's our bread and butter at the shop. Okay, so that's the end of that. Now it's time for a little test. So let me switch over to my other presentation and see if I can find it. No, not that one. Not that one. Come on, go away there. Thingy at the top.
Yeah, it's the one in the middle. To the
I know.
right
I can't get it because this bar is.
Oh, that bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tricky thing.
It'll go away in a minute. There it is. Okay. So so here's what we're gonna do. Since now you've had a chance to we've gone through this presentation. You had one you were supposed to look at in between. What I want you to do is grab a piece of paper, pen or a pencil, and I want you to, we're going to ask you to identify these insects and that I have pictures of here. So you get 1 point for each correct guess. But you have to submit 1 point for each wrong answer. And then we'll total up your points at the end, and we'll ask you to post your points in the chat, okay? So it's possible using this method to have a negative total at the end. So we rely on the honor system for you to keep track of your answers. So as I show these pictures, I want as many as want to shout out what you think this is. Not just the type of insect, but its life stage as well. So is it a nymph? Is it an adult? Is it an emerger? We won't look at eggs. Okay, so what is this one? Anybody speak out?
The stonefly.
Okay, what life stage?
It's an adult.
Okay.
Do I need a more specific answer?
No, that's good.
Okay.
That's all you need. Okay, so give your, if that was your guess, everybody, give yourself 1 point. If it wasn't, assign yourself a -1. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Who knows what that one is? Somebody take a guess.
Is that a caddis larva?
What was that?
Is that a caddis larva?
It is a caddis larva. Okay. Give yourself 1 point if you guessed a caddis larva. Take away 1 point if you didn't guess that correctly.
Hey, Dick, how about a bonus point? How many legs does that caddis larva have?
Good question. Who knows?
No one knows.
Everyone take their guess.
What's your guess, Noah?
6.
Technically
Yes, in
6,
fact,
but it also has prolegs. Larry, how many?
6. So there's 4 up front that they kind of grab and pull themselves along. But if you look at the rear, there are 2 tiny little prolegs, and they can act like an inchworm, where they take and they grab with the lowers and pull themselves forward with the front, and look kind of like an inchworm when they're going through fast water.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay, what is this one?
It's a adult mayfly.
Correcto Garcia.
She got the buzzer.
So just guessing from the color of the wing, is this a dun or a spinner adult? Anybody know?
Done.
My guess is it's a dun. It looks like it's newly hatched with that darker colored wing. Yeah. Okay. This one.
Ooh,
Stonefly larva.
Okay.
beautiful
Great.
one.
Anybody have a guess as to what kind of stonefly larva?
Golden.
Golden
Yeah.
stone, right? We did. I'm going to show you a little video in a bit about how to sample for bugs in a stream, and that we did in the St. Vrain. And there are many, many of these in the St. Vrain. This one happens to be an exceptionally colorful one, but we find a lot of these in the St. Vrain.
So before you leave that one, Dick,
Yeah, let me go back. Let me see if I can get back here, Larry. Whoops.
sorry about that.
You can just page up.
Yeah.
So see those fuzzy things on their legs? Anybody know what those are? And around their abdomen, you can see fuzz as well.
Yeah, between their legs.
Are those like for protection?
No. Anybody else? Guess?
Are those used for
Is
sensing?
it,
What was that?
is
Are
it
they
to help
used for-
them
oh,
grab
sorry,
onto
my bad.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Actually,
No.
on stoneflies, those are their gills. And
Yeah.
if you look at the gills on many of the other aquatic insects, they flutter and are maybe along their body as opposed to on their legs. And stoneflies are not capable of generating turbulence to gain oxygen. And so they have to be in moving water in order for their gills to be able to absorb oxygen.
Right.
So if we were doing our live collections on the stream and we put some of these bugs in trays, you'll see after a while that these stoneflies will start doing push-ups, because what they're trying to do is get water to go past their gills so they can get oxygen. So
Exactly.
this prehistoric bug, has their gills where you see them there, and they have to be in moving water typically.
Exactly. And as somebody brought up something about their gripping, yes, they have little claws on the end of their of each of their legs that they can use for grasping. Okay, what's this one?
A mayfly?
Okay, what life stage?
Is it a spinner?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is it a spinner?
It's actually probably a dun. It's an adult dun. Yes. Okay, so if you guessed adult mayfly, you get a point.
If you look at the mouths of the adult mayflies, you'll notice sometimes there is no mouth. That's one of the reasons that they die so quickly, is they have no way to ingest water or food.
Exactly. An interesting thing about many mayflies too is that many mayfly nymphs have 3 tails, but when they hatch into an adult, they only have 2. Kind of an odd thing. Okay, who knows what this is?
Midge larva.
Nope.
No? Oh.
No cigar. Okay, what's the key identification point on this?
Gills.
Gills, right. So that makes it what?
Isn't it a midge pupa?
It is a midge pupa.
Correct.
Exactly. And you can see the little wing buds there too, directly to the right of the gills. Those little oval shaped things, those are its wing buds. So as when it actually breaks through the surface of the water, which is difficult for them, by the way, they typically rotate their tail end up and use their tail as leverage to push their heads through the surface of the water. It'd be kind of like you being trapped under saran wrap and trying to poke your head through the saran wrap. Kind of the same kind of effort.
Dick, I looked up what was a true fly, and true flies are those that have only one pair of wings.
Yeah, okay. Good point. Yes, all the other aquatic insects have 2 pairs of wings. On mayflies, they're quite stunted. On stoneflies, they're layered under each other. And on caddisflies, the second pair is also stunted. Okay, who knows what this one is? Somebody? No guesses?
Is it a caddis?
It is a caddis. What life stage?
Cased.
It's a cased caddis larva. Okay, good. See, I used to be a teacher, so I can wait longer than you can. Okay. Okay, what is this one? This one might be a little tricky.
A mayfly larva.
Nope. Take away a point. Sorry.
Stone
Is
adult.
golden stonefly? Oh,
It's a stonefly, yes. It's a golden stone or a yellow Sally, one of the two. They're hard to tell apart. Because we can't really judge the size here. But yes, it's an adult stonefly. What are these guys?
midge larvae.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite get that.
Midge larva.
Yes, midge larvae. They are a particular type. People often call these bloodworms. This is a type of midge that has a lot of hemoglobin in its body. These typically live in the silt in the bottom of a creek or river, and so they don't get to breathe as much oxygen from the moving water. So they store oxygen in their bodies in hemoglobin, just like we have oxygen in our blood with lots of hemoglobin in it, which gives it its red color. Okay, good. That's a great guess. This one.
Ooh.
We talked specifically about that when we were talking about this bug. Guesses? Okay.
Is it a caddis merger?
Exactly. Very good. Caddis emerger headed for the surface. And by the way, you see that little copy right there from Jason Newswanger and his site called troutnut.com. I recommend troutnut.com very, very highly. He's got incredible photographs of aquatic insects. Because he's based in the East, most of the specific species he shows are Eastern species, but there's huge crossover. I mean, a mayfly adult is a mayfly adult is a mayfly adult, irrespective of species. They all have pretty much the same body form and so forth. So you might want to check out troutnut.com. Okay, what's this one?
It's ugly.
Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, I went away. Sorry about that. Let me.
You're here.
Am I still there?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, let me get back here then. Oh, there we go. Who knows what that is? Can somebody guess?
Is that a caddisfly adult?
It is.
Really?
On. Right on.
Caddisfly adult, very good. All righty. And this one.
Is that a mayfly larva?
It is. Mayfly larva. You guys are good.
Yeah, these guys know their bugs.
Yeah, they do.
That's an adult midge, I think. Right?
You're correct. What gave that one away?
The longer legs.
And what else?
The fact that it has like fuzzy antennae.
Hang on one sec. I need to answer this call real quick. I can't talk right now. A friend is trying to call me. Okay, so you can see here, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but it's those the antenna, which are the remains of the gills. Okay, and as Barbara pointed out to us, 2 wings only. All right, what is this one?
And a caddis larva.
Nope.
Is it a midge larva?
It's a midge larva. But just like the caddis larva, they do. This picture is not terribly clear, but they also have prolegs on the rear end on the last segment, which they use to hold on. And this one, obviously in the film, what does that tell you?
Mayfly?
What life stage?
Mayfly emerger.
Correcto. Mayfly emerger, right in the film. Okay, so now we have some bonus questions. And so if you're in a deficit, this might help you make it up. Are stoneflies pollution tolerant or intolerant?
Aren't they pollution intolerant? So there's
They're
signs of a healthy
pollution-
stream.
Exactly. Pollution
Correct.
intolerant. They are one of the best indicators of stream health. Okay. So if you find a stream with a lot of stoneflies, you know that's a good, healthy stream. Okay. Bonus question number 2. How about midges? Pollution tolerant or intolerant? Now, this is a generalization. So any guesses?
Are they tolerant?
They are more tolerant than most other aquatic insects of pollution. So, and they also can live in pretty warm water compared to many other of the insects. Most of the aquatic insects here in Colorado, at least in the the western part of Colorado, where most of us live, are cold water species. Here's another bonus question. What does macroinvertebrate mean? And there's 2 things in there.
Well, I know that macro means there's micro, macro. Macro means bigger, and invertebrate means that it doesn't have a spine.
Exactly. What does it have instead of a spine?
Outside cartilage. Outside cartilage.
Yes, it has an exoskeleton. Okay. So macro, big enough to be seen by the unaided eye, invertebrate, no backbone. Now, here is a bonus question worth 1,000 points. This is this is coming up. I have to introduce it. This is a philosophical question that has puzzled philosophers and scientists and others for many hundreds of years. Here it is. How many angels can dance on the head of a pin? Somebody take a guess.
As many as there are, because you can't approximate an angel's size. You gotta figure out what size they are. So it's an infinite number.
I'll give you that answer, but it's actually 542. But seriously, no, it's just an old question. But I like that answer, so give yourself 1,000 points. Okay, that was it. Okay, so post your totals in chat. We won't shame you if you ended up with a negative score. Okay. Okay. So are people chatting?
A lot of people, Dick, when they did the story of their life, a lot of our participants said one of the things they wanted to learn more about was matching the hatch. And so do you guys have questions for Dick? Because it seemed like a lot of you really wanted to learn more about fly selection and how you can do that with more confidence. Throw your questions out there. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah.
All right. So I had a question.
Say your name. Say your name, please.
Oh yeah. Sorry. My name is Grant.
Okay, Grant.
So my question is, I think it's pretty general, but what are the most important things when you're choosing a fly?
That's an excellent question.
Very good question.
I will give my opinion, and I will ask the other staff members to chime in as well. Let's talk first about, I think the most important thing for any fly is the form of the fly. For dry flies, think about this. When a fish is watching a dry fly or watching a dry fly or an adult insect floating down the surface of the water, they're seeing that against a light colored sky, even if it's overcast. So what they see is a silhouette, basically. So the form of that fly against the sky on the top of the water, to me, is a very important thing. They don't see the color of the body very much. When it comes to subsurface flies, all the other stuff, the larvae and the scuds and so forth, they get a much better look. So I think in addition to form, color is very important. But I'll ask others to chime in as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dick. I think form, size, and color are all important. And that size and form might be the most important. And if they get, I don't know, if for some reason they're pickier on a given day, maybe color starts to play a role, but typically color I don't think is that critical.
Yeah.
Can be, but not typically. So I agree with that. And I think that the most important thing when you go to select a fly is either knowing the water and what has worked there in the past, or using your powers of observation and spend some time looking around you, what's happening. And Dick started his presentation that way. Do you see insects hatching? If you don't see any insects, chances are a dry fly might not be a very good choice. A nymphs or a larval stage might be a better choice. And then making those observations about what's under the rocks are going to be is really important. So you got to combine your powers of observation then with your knowledge of fish behavior.
Exactly.
A good rule of thumb, if your fly is not working, one thing to do is to go to a smaller size.
Exactly.
Because typically the bugs are smaller than what you think they are. I like to fish small streams, and I use a lot of dry dropper combinations. I'll put a good dry fly on that I can see. I like to use small stimulators a lot. I can see them. The fish seem to like them. And then depending on the depth of the stream, a foot or 18 inches below that, put some sort of nymph, a pheasant tail, or some sort of nymph down below. And that seems to work well on small streams. John Barr once said, "Why do I want to have anything on my fly line that doesn't have a hook in it?" I've had fish hit at the strike indicators, or I've even had fish hit at the knots in my leaders. So I use a lot of dry dropper combinations.
Right.
Quite often on the stream, I'll get somebody coming up and asking me, "What are they biting on?" You know what I typically tell them?
I know.
The end of my line.
That's right.
Right. And then fish have to be eating. So presentation is a really big part of this. and putting that fly right in front of the fish with a natural looking presentation or drift is really often more important than the fly you use.
Exactly. You got to put it where the fish are likely to be, and it has to behave in the water like the natural insect does, which most of the time, 99% of the time, is on an absolute dead drift with no drag. Whether it's a nymph or a dry fly. Now, other flies we do manipulate, like soft tackle and wet flies. Oftentimes, we'll manipulate them in certain ways, and streamers and so forth. If you are a tenkara fisherman and you use tenkara specific flies, you know that manipulation of those flies is an important aspect of that. Most of the time, we want an absolute dead drift.
Oddly enough, if a fish is eating, the fish is on your side. The fish sees something drifting down in front of it. They want it to be food. They're not looking at going, no, I don't want it. It's got to be perfect. They hope when something's drifting in front of them that it is going to be food. So they're on your side, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Being at the correct depth, nymphing is also very important. If you don't get to the bottom, you're very typically just going to be, streaming above them.
Yep. All righty.
Any other questions? That was a great question from Grant.
Like, how do you know which kind of fly to use?
The one on the end of my line.
Well, by observation, what the fish, what bugs may be active at the time, and what your observations tell you about from looking under rocks, watching what's in the air, observing what's in the bushes and so forth. That's how you know if you are seeing mayflies swarming around the stream and you see fish rising and eating something off the surface, that tells you it's mayfly. And if it's a little yellow mayfly, you want to look in your fly box for a little yellow fly.
Yeah. And if you're new to fly fishing, I know a great resource is to look at the fishing reports for local fly shops, because they're often going to list the flies, the insects that are active, and the flies that people are catching fish with.
Right.
So that can be a really great resource when you're brand new to this.
Yes, absolutely.
I carry a small aquarium net. It's, I don't know, maybe 2 inches by 3 inches. But if I'm on an unfamiliar stream, it's not as effective as the big net that we're going to show you how to do serious bug sampling. But it can sure be an aid to stick it down in the water and see what you can catch. And it's small enough you can carry it in your vest.
Yep, good idea.
Early on as a fly fisherman, I was always in a hurry. And when you are in a hurry, you miss things. And so just taking the time to sit on a rock and look what's floating by, try to capture it here and there, the spinners, or seeing, floating bugs going past a rock, are all really cool ways to figure out what's going on.
Yep. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on then. I want to, what we're going to ask you to do, or what we are asking you to do right this moment, is between now and next Monday, to go out and do some stream sampling and to record the stream life that you find. You have your field guide, your field notebook, and in there you have a place to record what you find, the insects that you find, and most of which will be larval or pupal forms of insects, and to record those in your field guide. This little video shows you how we did it a few weeks ago on the St. Vrain here near Longmont, on the South St. Vrain specifically. So let me run that video for you.
Oftentimes when we hit the stream, we turn over rocks looking for bugs, just kind of seeing what's going on. However, if you haven't, you should grab a friend get some screen, and make a net and do a little sand wand shuffle. What you want to do is have one person position themselves downstream in a current. The other person goes upstream and starts kicking around rocks and trying to just get everything from the bottom of the stream up floating into the net. It really helps to even reach down and pick up some of the bigger rocks to get more of a sample and see certain bugs that tend to hide there rather than the smaller rocks. After you've kicked up enough, it's also helpful to go down and help your partner by lifting up the bottom of the net so that you capture more of what you've collected. On the bank, well, as you can see, even grown men have a lot of fun picking through the stuff. It helps to have an ice cube tray, preferably white or some other white container, some tweezers, and some enthusiasm for picking through everything. Take your time, because some of the critters are small. What you'll observe is that the density of bug life is much different than just picking over rocks, and there's a lot of food that trout see. You'll start seeing things like small midges, and as you put them into the tray, you can actually observe some of their movements and how they act alive. Caddis are another fun one. You'll see different ones, from net spinners, like this sedge, to clingers, like these drakes. And generally, they're around a size 12 to 16 during the summer months, meaning that fish see a lot of bugs in this size range. You can also see, like with these stoneflies, that the same bug can have different sizes. The reason these stoneflies are different sizes is because golden stones can take up to 2 to 3 years to reach full maturity, so there's multiple generations in the river at any given time. You may also see things like this green caterpillar thingy. It's actually a nighttime moth. And yes, they actually are caterpillars. And the reason we never see the bugs is because the moths hatch at night. It's these kind of things that you can observe and have a different perspective of during a stream sampling. Because of this variety is the reason some of our general attractor patterns work so well. Traditionally, pheasant tails, hare's ears, prince nymphs, and even some of our more fun modern variations. And one of the things I've learned most from doing this is to follow the GIS method, the general impression, size, and shape. That's because that's what trout are constantly seeing in rivers and have to make split-second decisions on.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Any questions about that or comments? Well, this is your assignment for next time, is to make a net and do some stream sampling. You have on the Google Sites, there is a document that explains how to make two different kinds of nets. And I think Barbara also posted another one as well. And we sent all of you some of that bridal veil material known as tulle. And you can use it to make a net. One of the methods we showed you was to use a couple of hangers duct taped together so for rigidity, and then to make a simple square net that you sew into that frame. I think in our example, we showed somebody doing it with a sewing machine, but doing with a simple overhand whip stitch by hand works just as well. It doesn't have to be neat. It just needs to be capable of trapping insects. And the other one is what is typically called a kick net, which uses a couple of 2x2s or wooden dowels with some screen or tulle stretched between them, stapled or nailed onto those two poles like you saw here in the video. So have fun with that. And I think that's about all that I have for now.
So, Dick, I'd like to add to that in regards to your field notebooks. You'll find pages near the back that have a place where you can document what kinds of insects you found in your sampling. This is one of the ways that scientists use to judge the quality of the habitat in a particular stream or river. What are some other ways you think that you can take a look at habitat and figure out what's going on and if it's a healthy stream or not? Anyone have any ideas?
Watercolor and pH.
Yes, turbidity, pH. What else? Any ideas?
Who does river watch in their school?
Because of climate change, it's becoming increasingly important. What might that be? Water temperature? We said pH, but it's one water quality measurement from a chemical standpoint. There are others as well. Dissolved oxygen, if there's not enough oxygen in the water, that's important. Flows are important. There are many different things that can tell you about the health of the stream. Pollutants is another big one. That'd be either point or non-point source pollution. Those are some of the things we'll talk about in more detail tonight in the watershed discussion.
Right. In Colorado, with our mining history, we have severe pollution problems with, pardon me, I don't think Ben is on here today, but Ben lives down in Durango. There was a terrible accident in Durango a few years ago where mine tailings, or mine drainage, I should say, got into the Animas River, and luckily didn't have a long-term effect. But mine drainage is a big problem, causing pollution. And also, believe it or not, natural outcrops of metal ores can cause pollution. That's a problem down on the North Fork of the South Platte, for example. Not only mine drainage problems, but also natural outcrops of metal ores cause pollution on the North Fork of the South Platte in certain sections.
That's true of the Uncompahgre also.
Yes.
The
yes.
soils that it runs through as it goes north have a lot of metals and salts in them.
Here in the West, we had, especially on the far west slope, soils that are much more alkaline. And that pH difference as it goes downstream of the Colorado, and we take water from the Colorado and it concentrates it, we end up with severe alkalinity problems at the lower reaches of the Colorado River. And one of the favorite sayings for pollution prevention is dilution is a solution. If you have lots of water in the stream, it can dilute the pollutants, but if the flows are low, well, it tends to concentrate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So do your stream sampling, record what you find, and be prepared to share that next time.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of review your resources then, if you go to the Google site on session 4, then this handout, macroinvertebrates, what is a macroinvertebrate? This is, we assigned this for you to review before the session, but this is a great reminder for the types of, understanding the life cycles and the common trout foods. So that's a nice little reminder. There's also some pages in your field notebook that cover that too. And then
we should mention, excuse me, Barbara, we should mention the dichotomous.
Yeah, I'm going to. I will.
Okay. Sorry.
I will. Yeah, I will. Then also you can access the slide deck that Dick presented today. And I think this is really, really useful because of that question, how do you know what fly to use? And if you look here, then there's a lot of good basic suggestions that if you think nymph stages of mayflies, if you go to the river and you turn over rocks and that's what you find are a lot of nymph stages of mayflies, that's a great place to start. And then this slide deck is giving you some suggestions of flies to use. So you might want to download this and print it too to have as a reference. And then Dick is talking about doing the aquatic insect bioassessment. So you're going to do your own mini BioBlitz. And Dick, can they do this in a pond if they don't have access to a
Sure.
stream?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You'll find some different stuff, but.
Yeah, and in a pond, you're going to sample it a little bit differently. Like in a stream, you're trying to, all of these macroinvertebrates hang on to rocks. And so in a stream, you're kicking up the sediment surface to make a move into your net. In a pond, you're just going to take your net and you're going to swish it through the plants, through some weeds, kind of like one of you had pictures of that you had taken when you went out in your scavenger hunt. So you'll just swish it through the weeds and swish it along the top edge of the sediment if you go to a pond instead. So if you click on this aquatic insect bioassessment, it will take you to this page that has your instructions for how to make a net. So it has a couple of versions of nets in here. There are some other options in your field notebook, or like Jim, if you have a small aquarium net with a fine mesh, you can use that. Even a kitchen strainer, a fine mesh kitchen strainer will work. So Audrey's asking, they did it with 2 people in the video. Are we able to do it independently? Absolutely. And Dick, do you want to describe how to do that?
Sure. You just, you can take the net, hold it downstream so you're above it, and you can shuffle around and instead of using your hands to turn over rocks, use the toe of your shoes or wading boots to kind of dig around there and turn over some rocks. And so you're above the net and holding the top of the net, and those things will be washing down from your feet into the net. So a little bit different way of doing it.
A little different way. And I've even done it if you end up in a stream with really low flow, which isn't very likely this time of year. I've even done it where we pick up the rocks. We have a dish, like a little plastic leftover dish or something like that. And we pick up the rocks and we have water in our dish and we use a paintbrush to brush the samples into that dish. And when you have like really small samples in low flow, that would be a better way. But you're probably going to have pretty good flow since we're at the tail end of runoff right now.
You can also collect rocks from the stream in a bucket or something like that, and then put them in a strainer or something like that, and wash them off, wash the insects off of the rocks, brush them off of the rocks using your hands or a brush. That's another way of making it work.
You can use a net that you already have, but you want to look at the size of the holes in the fabric. You want that to be very fine and small, because if it's too coarse, the bugs will just go right through it and you won't collect anything but the largest of the bugs.
Yeah, typically for camp, we don't use the fine mesh in our collection nets. It's usually just going to Home Depot or Lowe's and getting door screen material.
Yeah, that will work. That'll definitely work. And so to remind you, the video is also on this page. And then I'll come back here. There's a field procedure page. So it has your equipment, ideas for equipment. You don't need all of this. And then what to do. And this is adapted from the Streamkeepers Field Guide. And it's a pretty robust process. And, we don't expect you to be a entomologist, a aquatic entomologist doing this. We just like to get out there and sample a little bit, and so that you can have some experience with these insects.
And it's fun.
And it is fun. It's super cool and a lot of fun. Let me go back here. So identifying your samples, you guys knew a lot of the samples. That was really awesome. And so the other thing then in your, I forget what pages, I think it's page 52 and 53 of your field notebook is this dichotomous key. And if you've used a dichotomous key before, that's awesome. You'll know what to do. If you haven't, it's like a roadmap, basically. And it's basically a decision tree. And so you can see like at the top here, shells, no shells. So most of the insects you're going to find, the macroinvertebrates, are not going to have shells. And then it's going to be legs, no legs. And if they don't have legs, then do they have tentacles or brushes and tails, or are they worm-like? And then once you come down these choices, then you can start to compare the individual pictures and determine what order or group your insect falls into. So most of what you're going to find is going to be midge larvae. You're probably going to find worms. you're likely to find a crane fly. And then you're going to find a lot of insects down in the bottom of this chart with 3 pairs of legs, no wings, and then you're distinguishing them on the number of tails. And the other thing you're distinguishing them on is where their gills are. And so as we were talking, Larry pointed out stoneflies, their gills are sitting under their armpits. And you're going to see those little filamentous fibers sitting under their armpits. You can find 2-tailed mayflies. Mayflies, if it has 3 tails, it is definitely a mayfly, but you may find 2-tailed mayflies too. And they're distinguished from stoneflies because their gill sit on their abdomen. They're these little flakes or filaments that sit on their abdomen. So you're going to be actually using some of those features of those insects to identify them. So this is basically how you're going to use this, this dichotomous key. Based on major distinguishing features, and then as you get deeper in the chart, you're going to use more of the unique details of that insect to distinguish one from the other. So that's the dichotomous key and how you use it to identify your samples. And then recording the observations. I showed you the field procedures, and there is also in your notebook some bioassessment worksheets. Here's some copies of them if you want extra copies to take this to other streams and do it at other times. And so this is what you're going to use, and you can use whichever one you like. The one on the left is a very simple sheet. I highly recommend doing this the first time you do it. And you can check what are the types that you find. And under each of these categories of pollution sensitivity, and then you can calculate the index value and determine your water quality rating for the area that you sample. So these are resources that you have too. If you haven't been able to come into the Google site, send me a note and I will help you so that you can find these resources. Yeah, so I think that's kind of the major thing on today's session.
Barbara, I'd like to add something in terms of the collection and what data and value it has.
Oh, please do.
So we started the camp. We've been in places where there are very good, high quality streams where we take our samples. And over the years, sampling in each of the various ranches that we've been at, it's been pretty similar. However, in one particular year, when we first started going into the Gunnison Valley, we went to the stream, and uncharacteristically, our sampling had very few stoneflies or mayflies in it. And it was an immediate indicator that there was mine drainage issues with this stream. It looked perfect. If you looked at that stream and took a picture and compared it to all the other streams we've done in the previous years, it doesn't look much different. But when you take a look at the aquatic life that's there, you quickly realize that there is an impact, that mining drainage had, taken away the pollution intolerant species of mayflies and the stoneflies from that particular reach.
All this information about flies and water quality and streams can seem pretty overwhelming when you first start into it, but it can become some of the most fascinating part of fly fishing and learning about the environment. So don't be overwhelmed by it, but look at it as an opportunity to really get to know what's going on.
So when you look at the processes you're using to sample, they are a slimmed down version of what you actually do as a professional looking at stream health, you can go out and look at various sites from the EPA and other water watch groups, and find that they have specific protocols for taking a section or reach of stream and mapping out usually 1 square yard areas where they will do sampling, and they will do it from multiple sites. They take then, and all the insects they take back to the lab, and they look at them under the microscope, and they classify them not just by their general class, but right down to the very specific species, and then are able to use that as part of their entire bioassessment.
Yeah, the scientists that can identify these species in detail are extremely well trained. They go through a lot of training to be able to do that.
And if anyone's interested, I do have a book that I can send you a link to that is very much like the page that Barbara was describing, but it's an entire book where it'll say, if you see this, go to page such and such. If you see this, go to page such and such, and can get you to where you can identify species all the way down to their individual, species, as opposed to just general class.
Yeah, and when we do the live camp, the in-person camp, we do a lot of macroinvertebrate sampling, and we bring a library of references too to help you learn these more. So in terms of now just kind of wrapping this up and going on to session 5, the TikTok fishing challenge is here under the do-it-yourself activities under session 3. And like I said, any of these do-it-yourself activities, it doesn't matter which session you do. It's just we're going to basically compile everything you've done through Monday. Monday's going to be the cutoff. So there's the information for the TikTok. And if you don't do social media, I know a lot of people don't want their children doing social media, that type of thing, then you can still submit a video. Just use this upload form right here at the bottom of the page, and I'll compile those videos onto our pages also. So to look at your friends' stuff under session 3, here's the fishing videos that have been submitted. That's where you see it.
Your favorite pictures, stories, videos, all are important to share.
Yeah, photos are great too, because they can be compiled together. Yeah, whatever you want to share. We would love to build a story about this and you, and a story about you too. So next session, our last session, one of the things that has always kind of been a central point of our camp is exploring career paths also. So that's the subject of the next session. And we are going to have 3 career panels. And so if you go to session 5 on the Google site, beforehand, you have an opportunity to read a little bit of background about our panelists. So we're going to have a fly fishing industry panel, a conservation panel. This young lady, Sarah Lucky, Sarah attended the very first camp in 2006. And Grant Burke also attended one of the early camps. And then the last panel we're going to have is a fisheries panel too. And then we have some special guests that are going to make appearances. R.A. Beatty, who is also a filmmaker, will be making an appearance. And then our good friend, Travis Schwartz, also known as Hank Patterson, will be making an appearance to talk about career paths and all the variety of things that a person can do in their life and still make an impact in the conservation world. So one other piece, Hank, yep. One other piece of homework for everyone. I would like everyone to prepare one question for a panelist. So review who the panelists are, the things that you're interested in, and prepare one question for one of these panelists or for all of the people in any given panel. Each of these people will spend a few minutes describing their background, how they got into what they're doing and what they do. And then you're going to have about 15 minutes for each panel to ask them questions. So let's make sure that these folks have something to talk about in terms of answering your questions.
One more thing while you're on this page. Right at the bottom of the center column, it says view Josh's film Decades, about 50 years. What? Don't go down, go back up. Back up to where you were. Right, stop.
Right there, yeah.
View Josh's film Decades, about 50 years of Colorado Trout Unlimited. Everyone should really see that.
So if you, okay, that reminds me also, if you didn't get to participate in the watch party, that film is part of the compilation that we put together for the watch party. Annie put the link in the group chat, the YouTube link. So make sure you copy that if you're interested in seeing the watch party films.
And so one other thing I'd like to share is, we've gone through many of the things that you guys have shared, and there are special interests within your groups that seem to be some things that you all are interested in. One of them seemed to be Patagonia and Argentina as being a destination. This gentleman right here, Evan Jones, is a former CU student. He was in the CU club years ago that I helped manage. And once he got out of college, he decided to take the $4,000 he had saved and took that particular money, went down to Argentina, and he fished all 5 provinces in about 4 to 5 months, just touring around and camping around Argentina. The book I just showed you is out of print. And if you were to go try to find it on Amazon, you'll probably pay $200 to $300 for it now. It's an excellent book. For those of you that'd be interested, I know Evan well, and he's willing to do a session where we talk about his experiences. He has tons of photos and video to share in that regard. And so as we go along, even though next week is the last camp, formal activity, we do have opportunities to do certain, special Zoom sessions that can cover things that everyone would like to hear. In addition to Argentina, many of you had said that you'd like to know more about how to be a guide. Well, we actually have at least 9 former students who are active guides, and even some of them that are owners of their own guide businesses. And so we'd be more than happy to put together a session where we bring 5 or 6 of those together and let you talk to them about, how they get into it, how they enjoy that particular part of the industry. The other special interest area I saw was competition fishing. We have a couple members who have been on the national team, junior and the adult national teams for fly fishing, as well as good friends that are in the Denver metro area that have been on the national team as well. And we can certainly pull together a session to talk with them about, what were their experiences, what did they have to do to prepare, and how did they get on the team.
That's great. We definitely can do that, and we might put a little poll together for the next session to see what your interest level are. But we're willing to, put some sessions together for you guys if you are interested in exploring some of these things. And just the last thing I want to make, it's 12 o'clock, I want to make everybody aware of is the resource page on the Google site. And we've been assembling some resources. If you're new to fly fishing, the Orvis How to Fly Fish is a great resource. Today we're talking about entomology, and the links to the Troutnut site that Dick referenced is here, as well as 3 other sites that have a lot of good macroinvertebrate information. Last week, we talked about native species conservation, and there's a number of websites here, and also some videos that Colorado Parks and Wildlife published from some of the stalking, the greenback cutthroat stalking at Herman Gulch, which is right basically across I-70 from Loveland Ski Area, right in that area. And I sent everybody an email earlier in the week. Colorado Parks and Wildlife is working on a possible stalking up off of Cameron Pass on the headwaters of the Poudre, and they're asking people to pre-register. They're still figuring out all the details related to our restrictions with coronavirus, but this is going to be a pretty vigorous, they're looking for people that are young and in shape to carry trout basically on unimproved trails up into the headwaters of the Poudre later in the summer. So if that really interests you, that could be an opportunity, you know, in your family that, you know, maybe people in your family would like to do that. So, so I think that's everything we have today. Larry or Dick, Jim, did you guys have anything else you wanted to cover?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I think it was a great session.
Okay, awesome. I think you did a great job, Dick. I learned a lot. Still, after all these years, oh, I should try that fly. I've never tried that one. So gave me good ideas too. So I've sent out a link to tonight's More About Watersheds session if you'd like to join us at 7 o'clock. And hopefully we'll see some of you. Have fun doing some of these activities. I hope you can go out and do some macroinvertebrate collection. It's really fun and really interesting. And I guarantee you, you can entertain your family with this too. And, you know, take the whole family to the stream and have people poring over bugs. They'll be fascinated. They'll be absolutely fascinated.
If anyone wants to accept the challenge, I've not done TikTok before, but I'm going to do the TikTok bug. Let's see if anybody can be dumber and sillier than I am.
Awesome.
All right.
That's a real challenge, the sillier part. All right, so have a great week, everybody. Thanks for coming today. We all had fun talking to you today.
And Barb,
Thank you so much.
Barb, I think we had scheduled next week for 10 till 12:30.
Yeah, that's one warning, is we are going to go a little bit later next week, and the session will go to 12:30. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, everybody.